Is Tamil the world's oldest language? Not necessarily, but there is a good reason why people say that. Let me explain. In linguistics, we don't usually say languages are older or younger than each other because they're not static things, right? They're all constantly evolving. For example, if I showed you something written in modern English, well, you could probably understand it, no problem. But if I showed you something written in Middle English, well, you might get the gist, but you would probably struggle with the nuances. But if I showed you something written in Old English, well, that is just a whole different language, right? But at what point did it stop being English? Because there was never really a clear dividing line in history, right? No one was waking up in the 1100s like, hey, Athelflaed, hey, Cuthbert, we're speaking English now. Rather, it's just been a long line of generations of people who mostly understood their parents and mostly understood their kids, but over hundreds and hundreds of years, you go from Athelflaed to skibbity riz. But if that's the case, why do so many people say Tamil is the oldest language in the world? That's a great question. So first of all, what is Tamil? Tamil is a language spoken by nearly 90 million people, primarily in southern India, Sri Lanka, and Singapore. It's also a member of the Dravidian language family, which means it's entirely unrelated to a lot of the languages spoken in northern India, like Hindi, Punjabi, or Bangla. Tamil is noted for its agglutinative morphology, that is to say you can put lots of bits of meaning together to get very long words. There's also, of course, its absolute banger of a writing system, but Tamil is especially noted for its history. The oldest identifiable stage of the Tamil language, that is to say Old Tamil, was spoken all the way back in the 3rd century BCE. But nevertheless, there's still an extremely extensive body of literature from that era written in Old Tamil. And that's incredible. That means that Tamil has one of the most extensively documented histories of any language on the planet. Now that being said, like English, Tamil has evolved considerably over the course of those thousands of years. But unlike English, Tamil still takes in tons of influence from its classical form. This varies a bit depending on what dialect you're talking about, but Tamil has generally taken in far fewer loanwords from Sanskrit compared to the languages spoken around it. And to this day, there exists a continuum between a heavily classically influenced literary style, a more modern formal literary style, and a more colloquial style of speaking. So all that is to say, is Tamil the oldest language? Well, that's not really how languages work, but it does have an incredibly interesting history, and I highly recommend you look more into it yourself. Thanks so much for watching. Let me know if there's anything else you want to talk about, and mega nandri.